Listen, hi to everyone out there. I want to say a special shout out to Sammy from Congo. Sammy, thank you so much, brother, for joining us. Also to Soledad Hernandez, thank you for being here. Valerie, howdy. I hope that you are well. Listen, do me a favor, guys. Hit your share button on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, I want you to hit share. Start sharing these with some friends. Get them to come on and join us. This is going to be really interesting what I'm going to do today. I'm going to do a kind of what I feel is going to be happening in Bob's. I think, one of the things I want to set you up is the idea of Bob's. And I mean, they're always going to be around. They're not going to go anywhere. They're not going anywhere, but it's just the variations of Bob's that I think that we need to be aware of. And as they progress naturally in terms of whether it's layered, whether it's graduated, which we happen to see a little bit more. We're starting to see these Bobs that have a little bit of a shattered edge. I'm going to take you through an opportunity where they're going to be combined together, and you'll see how that's going to work. Hi, Leslie. Hi, Risto. Hope you're there. Where are you from, Risto? Hope you're well, my friend. Thank you for joining us. Leslie, Risto, share this. Valerie, make sure you share and get people to come on. All right. I got my people on Facebook and YouTube. You guys are popping there. Make sure you share there also. And don't forget, guys, education. Education is an investment. That's what continues to grow. So I want to thank you for being here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a Bob. I think Bobs are going to become a little bit more popular. You're going to see them because of what we've been doing. Shags are not going to go anywhere. We're still going to be seeing a lot of variations of shags. As a matter of fact, Andrew, I came across one the other day. What was it? The scullette. Imagine that, the scullette. We'll talk about that later in terms of what it is. It's really cool. But anyway, you know me, guys. I'm your messenger. I go find it and then pass it on to you in terms of the interpretation of the Sam VOA. Bulgaria, Risto, welcome, my friend. So glad that you're with us in Bulgaria. Welcome, Ohana from Hawaii. Glad you're here. All right. So, Bobs, yes, shags, predominant. People are going to start saying, I'm tired of my layers. The best natural way to get rid of the layers is to cut the length off. Therefore, you're seeing these Bobs with people maybe growing their layers out or enjoying the layers. Therefore, you'll see Bobs that are layered. What I want to walk you through is a shape that I feel is going to become popular. It's basically, you're going to see them hitting around lip, chin length. That's right, lip, chin length. They're just going to get pretty aggressive. We've been talking about Italian Bobs, French Bobs. Names are names, whether we like them or not, but it's a way that we can identify them. What's the difference between an Italian Bob and a French Bob? I would say the difference is they look very similar, but what I want you to notice in a French Bob, it tends to be a little bit more rounded in the front, whereas an Italian Bob seems to be a little bit more square in the front with a very soft, diffused, layered effect, which is what we're going to do here. Let's get started, Andrew. What I want to do is walk you through my sectioning. What I've done is I've taken a horseshoe section up and through the top area. And the way that I did is by simply using, I'm going to work with a white comb on a dark natural level of color so you can see the contrast of what I'm doing here. Also, what I want to do is take my sectioning, and I determine that section by placing my comb right on the side of the head. Where that comb comes off, that's exactly where that horseshoe section takes place. On everyone, it differs. The side area, I'm a little bit further back behind the ear. And the reason we do this is we're normally even a little further back, but the way that I'm going to cut this today, I just moved it further. So we adjust this accordingly based on Bob's because it eliminates the process of getting that hole in the back. Now, I did this on both sides. Then I isolated just what we refer to as a back area, the right side and the left side. And now this is the nape area and what I'm going to start with. I'm going to sketch this out for you now. Now, if you have any questions, I want you asking questions. So please be sure that you are asking questions. All right, here we go. I'm going to start here in the back, and I'm going to work with a little bit of moisture to this. I find I'm working with moisture, but I'm allowing it to dry. If you say, well, Sam, what's going to be the biggest thing that we're going to be doing? You're going to start to see things become a little bit more organic, a little bit more natural. People are going to start embracing their hair. Now, here's a classic technique that I've been working with from probably just over 10 years. We're seeing this a lot now in terms of immediately eliminating length and weight. And this is a great way to do it. Why do I want to do this? I want to underlayer this underneath. I'm not going to undercut it. Undercutting meaning I'm going to take it scissor to comb down the scalp. I want to leave some degree of softness. Here's the idea. If I leave some degree of softness in this, it's a lot easier to grow out. If I take it down to the wood, scissor over comb, it's difficult in terms of growing out. So make sure you have that communication process with the client in terms of if there's any hesitation in an undercut, then I would move to an underlayer. I'm also going to keep this. Look at my hand position. My hand position is to the shape of the head. I'm going to give you a front view of this. Just turn it around. Look at that. See that? You can see that. Now, watch how I'm here. You can see how it's angled. In other words, it's not square to the wall. See, that would be square to the wall. So I'm here. Now, as I elevate this, what I want to do is I'm going to keep this fairly short, but short enough that I get some movement to it. Now, once I elevate, my hand is up against the head. That's going to release all of that. Watch as I let go of this. See how that released all of that length? I've got that off. Rather than me taking my length off, I'm going to take the inside off, then come back in and take off the length. Let's move to the opposite side. Here, you're going to see my hand position a little bit more to the shape of the head. Once again, I'm not horizontal straight across. I am cutting a horizontal line, but the horizontal line relates to the shape of the head. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because this is going to eliminate all of this length a little bit more rapidly to allow me to focus on the detailed area where I need to detail. And that's going to be everything that sits above that. Once again, great way just to take everything off. Now watch, I'm going to come back through and I'm going to come in and take this right up to that hairline. What I want to do is I want to create a bob where it has this length. You're going to see disconnection in this. Okay, and the disconnection you're going to see is going to be from that back area and the top area. You'll see how they're going to work. They're going to disconnect because I find if I disconnect it, I'm going to get that movement that I'm looking for. In other words, I want some texture to this. I want to cut more of a little bit of a sharp-edged bob, but texture with longer layers that float on top of that. I think that's what we're going to start to see is you're going to start to see your layering get a little bit longer. Now, let's just take a look at that profile view of that, what I just did. See how quickly that happened? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it down just a little bit even more. I'm going to take it tighter. So now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to sweep up on a diagonal, look at the position of my hand, and I'm going to release this corner. Sometimes I will leave this, okay? But this particular case, I know I want this underneath even tighter and a little bit shorter. So I'm working towards the right side. Watch the angle of the comb. It comes in at a diagonal. And by coming in at a diagonal, I'll move to a black comb so you can see it in regards to the angle and the white backdrop there. Okay, watch how I'm going to come into a diagonal. See my hand? How I just pick everything up. What comes out of that diagonal, that's what I'm going to take. So it's from point to point, and I'm taking that corner off. This is going to allow this to sit a little bit closer and a little bit tighter. Now look at this side now. Look at this side compared to what I have not done on that opposite side. Look how bulky that is right there. You can just start to see all of that bulk right in here. Okay, now watch. I'll give you a 3/4 view here. Watch the comb. As I come in, watch how I'm going to take a short piece here, short piece, and I'm just going to connect them. Okay, there's a short piece there. I can see it here. And to that perimeter edge, come in diagonal and take that off. And then I'll float up all the way up to that top. Now, that's a bad habit I have. I cut right back into this, okay? Establish good habits. A lot of people are here to the first knuckle. That's just a bad habit I have doing that, okay? So now I come up. Look how I elevate up. Anything that goes from point to point between those two dots, that's what I'm releasing. Now, I'm going to give you a profile view of this again. Let's move in a little closer and watch how tight this sits now. But what I want you to pay attention to is how quickly all of this is happening. Okay. Okay. Excellent. All right. See that? Now watch me move that. And you can just see how much tighter that is.
Well, we lost Sammy for a second, so hopefully his feed will pop back on here in just a moment. So bear with us. Sammy's doing a reset on his computer. Hopefully we will be back on in just a few moments. So stick around. Hopefully he'll be back in just a moment. Thanks for sticking with us. Those of you that are still on with us, Sammy is rebooted and he is on his way back. So just a few more moments.
Andrew, you there?
You're on, buddy.
Wow.
You're back. You're
I don't know what
live.
that was. So apologize to everyone. I don't know what that was, but we're back. That's the main thing. All right, let's get back to going. Now, let's recap where I was. I was working diagonally on what I elevated vertically and cut horizontally to the head. Once you do that, come back in diagonally. So you're taking that corner that you built, take that off. And you can see that just makes the shape much more sharper, and it makes it a little bit more so it sits a little bit tighter there. Okay. Now, here's where we're going to go. We're going to go to the front. Now, most bobs are starting in the back. And what I want to do is start in the front. Here's why. Let's set up a scenario. The scenario is the client says to me, and I heard her say it 4 times, I really want my bob to hit here. I want it to hit here. When they say something, repeat something a number of times, it means that they're having issues with maybe the person that previously cut it never listened to them. I don't know. But that's the perception I get when I hear, I want it here. I want it here. Please make sure you cut it here. So that said, I recommend challenge yourself and start the bob in the front. That way, it sets the client up to be very comfortable, no stress, as she can see that you immediately cut the length where they wanted the length. Okay, so I'm going to ask her, make sure you're holding your head straight up. Okay, now I'm going to work with a white comb on dark hair. Watch how the white comb is going to allow me to see that line. See how that line's slightly down? I want it nice and square. That's important. Nice and square. If I keep that nice and square, that's exactly what I feel are happening with bobs. That little French bob has a little bit more roundness here, but I want it square. So by doing this, give you a little view here of how I'm going to do it, give you 3/4 view. Notice how I'm going to work with the wide teeth of the comb. The wide teeth of the comb, when I bring that hair down to cut, it's going to give me less tension. So it sets it up to at least be close to one length. If I use the fine teeth of the comb, it gives that hair a little bit more tension. And you know as well as I do, the more tension that you give a particular section before you cut, you're going to get a small amount of graduation. So I'm going to take this section and I'm going to take just a small section in my hand. I go fine teeth first. Now wide teeth. I sets up my tension. Notice how I line myself up. Look, I moved my hand and now I replace my hand and I'm going right for that lip area. Look how I just adjust. That's where I want to be. And that's what I'm going to cut. I'm going to keep this edge. I think you're going to see edges a little more solid in the coming season, but you're going to see softness on top of that. So now by doing this, this really enables me to get that length exactly where I want that length. Now watch, let's move here. Okay, notice how I'm working with it all at once. I'm not taking it section by section. I'm doing that because number one, yes, time, but number two, it just is going to give me that really sharp edge and allow me to see it almost immediately. If I work with my comb properly, position my hand properly, and I'm taking the time to cut these really details very nice, then I think, you can get away with taking bigger sections. I think taking bigger sections also depends upon the density of the hair. Okay, just coming back, readjusting. My eye sees something right here and come back and readjust. Okay, now watch after I cut a section, how I immediately put it in blow dry position. This allows me to see the line that I've cut and how is the line responding, and also allows me to see the section where I put it. Now watch this line. how this bob is going to continue over the graduation that I created underneath. So this underneath area from here, from the comb down, will be exposed. So that's why I went after this underneath nape area first. Now let's come to the back area, the right back area. Notice how I'll take this right back area down, but watch what I'm going to do to have control. Because of the head tends to round so much here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to take that in half and cut right to the roundness of that vertical section I have. So here's the first one. For my PVD friends that are out there watching, that's the corner of the head. For my non-PVD friends, disregard what I said. For my Sam Villa friends, notice how we tend to take that corner a little bit further back so that it enables us not to get a hole. Now look at my hand position. Watch again. Here's the second. You can see I'm taking a piece of what I just cut. Now watch me. Look at the comb. I'm pushing the comb up against my hand. These are small details we need to pay attention. I push my comb. Look at that. See, I'm pushing up against my fingers. Now that gives me that proper edge to cut, and that's where my hand goes. I'm going to comb, readjust, move over. Look at the comb, white comb. Using that white comb really gives me a nice contrast. And see like how I'm just getting that bob to sit right over that little edge that I want. I move to the right side of center. Okay, there's the right side of center. And watch me once again position my hand to the shape of that head. What do you mean, Sam? Watch. Tilt your head back. Now, if I place my comb here, see where it comes off at that point and this point? That's exactly how I'm going to position my hand, just like this. So if you look at it, it's slightly diagonal. It's not, in other words, what I'm trying to teach you here, my friends, is don't cut a square here and then a square on the side. You've got to get this so it sits rounding on the head and sits according to the head shape. That's critical. Okay, repositioning my head. Now here we go. Here is the next vertical section I'm working with. Fine teeth to clean, fine teeth to clean, wide teeth to set up my tension, readjust my hand. Look at how I'm holding my comb. Now I look at my comb in the mirror and I slide down to that guide and my hand is in the proper position. I come in and make my cut. Okay, now we've completed the right side underneath. You're going to see what I'm going to do that top. I'm going to give that top a total different texture when I go in and cut that. I'm going to move to the left side. So notice how I'm going to work my way around this. Okay, interesting how I'm not going to cut one side then the other. I'm going to work my way around. Okay, now I come to the left side of that back area. Okay, now I'm going to come through, adjust. There's that little where the head turns, that little corner. Let's get rid of that. We go here. Okay, to the left of center now. Notice when I comb, fine teeth, clean, fine teeth, clean. Now I'm ready to cut. White teeth sets up my tension. Comb to the shape of the head. And notice how my elevation, I'm keeping that really low. My hand is right up against that head. Now we go to the opposite side. Okay, now I am to the far left side. We cut right, left of center. Now I'm cutting the other vertical section. Watch how I take some of that line. There's that line there. You can see that. I bring it down. Question, Andrew.
Yeah, I noticed you're using a 7-inch shear for this haircut, and I know in school and stuff, a lot of people are taught like, oh, use a small shear for your wet cutting or this size shear. Can you tell us a bit of why you're choosing that big 7-inch dry cutting shear for this?
You bet. Okay, what I'm actually using is the 625. But I'm actually using the 625. But I'm not what Andrew's point is. I'm working with a longer shear. I'm not working with a 575 or a 5.5. And the reason I'm doing that is because of the amount of section I'm taking, Andrew. I'm taking larger sections, so I want to have a little bit more of a longer blade, so I'm able to get in there and collapse against the length of that section and the depth of that section. If I find myself going a little bit more precise, Andrew, in smaller sections, or if I'm cutting short pixies or short hair or men's hair, that's when I'll pick up my 575 or 5.5. So I think length has a lot in terms of choice. Like when you're picking a shear, place it in your palm of your hand. And they say that when you place it in the palm of your hand, when the tip of the shear comes to the index finger here, that's generally a good size shear for you in terms of when you're picking a shear. But today I'm working with a 625, a longer shear. Yes, Andrew, versus a 575, 5.5. Why? The density of the sections I'm working with, number one, and the length of the sections I'm working with, number two. I'm going for something that has a little bit more compressed cutting and not something that's so much section by section and being so precise. I hope that answers the question. Okay. All right. Let's continue on. Andrew, bring them on. Bring the questions on. If you have any questions, all right, bring them on. Hi, Oana from Romania and Blue. Thank you, my dear. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Let's see who else has joined. Okay. Do me a favor. Make sure you share. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and share with your friends. Let them join us. And we did have a little bit of a technical difficulty earlier, but I think we're doing fine. Okay. Here we go. All right. Front now. I'm coming back to that front. Now, I'm just going to trust that my hands were in the proper position. There's that guide. Look at that comb leading me right to where I need to go. Okay, so I'm going to stabilize that. Here we go. Fine teeth to create and clean. Okay, now white teeth are coming in. And now my comb and trust and cut it. Okay, I'm going to readjust. Notice I'm going to readjust, okay, meaning I'm not going to bring it all the way across. I have a bad habit of cutting into the pocket of my hand, AC. So here we go, right there. That's where I belong, and I'm going to cut that. All right, now let's take a look and see how our balance is from one side to the opposite side in terms of what we just did. It looks like we did really well there, okay. I'm going to come back to this side. Here, this is the side that I just cut. I'm going to put that in blow dry position. Just want to check. I'm feeling really good about that. All right, let's come right underneath. Now, once I've done this, watch this, AC. Once I've done this underneath here, I start to see, okay, where do I need to take a little bit more hair out? So I look at this underneath and I say, could I make this underneath a little bit tighter? In this particular case, I'll bring it a little closer to you. In this particular case, I feel that I can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the shear down, and now I'm going to pick up a blending shear. I love working with a blending shear, AC, when I go through and I do these undercuts and underlayers. This is the reversible blender, okay? So I'm going to come through. I'm going to place my blunt blade on the bottom and my texture shear on the top. And look how I just come through. See, I just come up to that line. I open and close, and I bring it down. I come up, blunt blade on the bottom. Give you a good view here. Look at that weight right there. Okay. Blunt blade all the way up in the bottom. Now I open and close and work my way down. Now look at how nice that sits. If I need to take off more, I'll come back in and take off more. Sometimes I think when you come in and you're doing this, it's very visual, these underneath napes. What I did not want to do, what I love by cutting it this way, is I didn't take this graduated point all the way up to here. Look how that's just a small graduated point that sits right underneath on that bob. All right. Any questions? Have you learned something
we got a
so far?
question from Colleen asking, hi from San Diego. How would you adjust this for curly, wavy, or fine?
Okay, let's define that. Thank you for asking that. All right. Texture is different. I'm just going to say that that's a great question, because if I had curly hair, my first thing I need to ask myself, what type of curl am I working with? Is it a 1, meaning straight? Is it a 10, meaning coils? So you have to understand that. Could I do this haircut on that? Yes, but yet you're going to get a lot of expansion. So that's going to be based upon the personality of the client in terms of, can they handle that expansion? A lot of times it depends upon, I think where you need to be aware is the curlier it gets, or the more coils, it's a different total approach in terms, I'm cutting that most of the time completely freehand. So can you do this? Yes, you can. I've seen some beautiful bobs. Stacked bobs are great on curly hair. Yet when you tend to disconnect, you tend to have those ledges and those gaps. So sometimes you've got to round those corners out. So what I would recommend, Colleen, is make sure you understand the texture of the hair. What are the limits and capabilities of that texture? What can you do and what can you not do? Can this shape work from? Yes. Disconnection, I'd have to understand the type of curl that I'm working with. I hope that helps you out, Colleen. Okay. All right, here we go now. Once I've got this now, this is where it gets interesting, Andrew. I'm going to take the comb. I'm going to use the comb, but here's what I want to create. I want to create length on top of this. I really believe that layers are going to get longer. You're going to start to see these people growing their layers out. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to blend this, but yet I'm going to blend it very textured. And I'm going to do it in a very controlled way. What I'm going to share with you is great with natural curly hair. This would be great, Colleen, this technique that I'm going to share you now. What I want to do is I want to enhance the edge on top of this, Bob, by allowing it to be a little bit more loose. Okay, and you're going to see how I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut a nice fringe on this also. So I'm going to take that fringe area out now, AC. So I'm going to take a triangle fringe and take that out. I'm going to share with you fringes that I feel are going to start to become popular. Fringes are awesome. We're going to start to see things, natural progression. You're going to start to see things moving to a side part. You're going to see what I believe is, I like to call a side saddle fringe, where a fringe will move to the side, but it will go high and drop back down. You're going to see that a lot, especially for your more kind of softer type, your more coiffed type clients, if you will. This, I think, is going to be for those people that tend to say, I want to just allow it to dry naturally, Sam, which this is a great shape that they can allow it to dry naturally. All right, this is going to be the fringe. I'm going to take that out. Okay. Actually, I want to put a little bit more into this, AC. Okay. What do you mean? What do you mean by what you just said, Sam? I want to make it my fringe a little wider. Okay. I felt I had a little bit too narrow. So I want to put more into that. So how do you know, Sam, how much to put into it? Well, it's all that fringes are based on face shape. So my suggestion would be to establish the face shape. You know, how wide or how narrow is it? It's going to determine how wide or how narrow your fringe is. So fringes will awaken a shape, but you really have to understand face shape when you're going to cut a fringe. All right. If you've learned something so far, just write the word learn in there. Just write the word learn in there. If you have any questions, I want you to make sure you voice out your questions, because questions are life's greatest resource for learning. Okay. I want to isolate this, get this out of the way, because when I cut the length on top of this, I want to see how that's responding. And if I leave this down or don't isolate it nice and tight, I find it really affects what I see in terms of an end result. Now watch this, guys. Okay. All right, let's start here on the right side. And I'm going to comb it in its natural falling position. Let me tilt the head to show you what I mean. I'm going to comb it with growth pattern. And then once it hits that roundness of the head, I'm going to let gravity take over. So I comb to that roundness of the head. Now watch me take this and comb straight down. So roundness, I'm combing to the round, slightly forward. I hit the round, straight down. Look at the growth pattern here and straight down. See, this way I have that hair where it naturally wants to live. Now, once I've established that, I want to separate this front to back. So watch me separate this front to back. So I separate that. That's the natural separation right there. Let's eliminate this hair. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of 3/4 turn. Okay. Right there. Okay. Now, once I have this, I want you to shake this and let all this underneath fall out. Okay. Then you're going to take these sections and you're going to keep them consistent. So I'm going to take about 2 fingers and 2 fingers. So I'm going to split that in half. Now, once I've got that, watch what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm going to take my shear. I want my shear vertical with this. Where that length is, see that length? I'm going to drop 1 finger just below that. And now I'm going to come in. That allows me to get my shear in. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to close. Look at that. See, then I'm going to come back to a horizontal, back vertical, open and close, back to a horizontal, back to that diagonal, open and close. Back to a horizontal. I collapse. When I bring that line back, look at this. When I bring it back, I'm bringing it right back to that length. So that shear is lined up with that length. Now I turn back diagonally and look at my thumb. So I bring it back down that length. I come back diagonally. And you just do this until that hair is completely gone. Okay. Now look at this texture that I placed on top of what I've done underneath. So what this is going to do is going to give me a little bit more response, Andrew. It's going to give me, yes, a slight little bit more volume, but I'm layering this top, but it's a longer layer. So people will look at this and go, well, that's long length, but it's one length, but it's dried naturally. But if you really look at it, this is really soft sitting on top of one length. Questions, concerns, comments? suggestions. Okay, let's watch again now.
People's minds are blown, Sammy. Keep
Okay,
going.
here we go. Watch. Thank you, AC. Look how I watch this. Now you're not watch when I bring this down, Andrew. I'm not going to cut when I bring it to a horizontal. All I do is take it to the length that I'm cutting. I start to tap, tap, tap. I come back in on a diagonal. So the line that I'm cutting here is diagonal in. See that? So I'm not cutting straight up. So now watch my comb. Horizontal to the diagonal. Now tap, 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 tap. Back to a horizontal, to a diagonal. Tap, 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 tap. And I'm loving this, guys, because it's just giving me. Now, let's see. I'm going to move myself out of the way, Andrew. I'm going to bring this a little closer. I'm going to go down so you guys can get the view on this a little closer. So here it comes. How's that, AC? Okay, now watch. Look where the shear goes. Okay, look where it goes. It's right to the length. That right there is my length. So see, I bring my length. Now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to elevate this and I go diagonal. Tap, 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 tap. Now I come back down to a horizontal. That's where I belong. As soon as you're there, turn and start tapping. And you'll release your length out of that section. I mean, I got to tell you guys, I love the geometrics, the harshness that I'm getting down here. But on top of that, here comes that kind of organic sense of feel that I think you're going to start to see in your body. All right, now all we got to do is we continue to work that way around this, Andrew. So now once again, here I am in the back. Okay, this is that top crown area. I'm going to divide this in half. There we go. So I divide that in half, or 2 fingers. Okay, now I'm going to step to the other side, and then I'm going to make a suggestion here. Okay, I am going to come in, Andrew, and I'm going to see, hold on, here, I got it. Okay, I'm going to switch to a swivel. Okay, why are you switching to a swivel? Because when I come to my horizontal, because of the way my body's positioned right now, because of the computer and video, I can't get in there the way I want. Now watch with a swivel. Anytime you feel you're bending this wrist too much, guys, like this, that's where a swivel comes in. So I recommend you definitely have a swivel in your arsenal because it's a tool, just like butter knife, steak knife, butcher knife, all kinds. Here we go. Now watch this. Look, when I comb that down, it doesn't look like all choppy. That's what I do. Listen, some of you may be looking at this and going, what is he doing and why? Listen, you know, I was taught precision, precise, but things change. I have to be open to change. It's not about what works for me. It's about what works for the person that's sitting in your chair. So don't get caught up in favorite techniques. If I were you, I would know 50. So that you understand the what, the how, and the why of the 50. You'll know when to apply that one to a certain type of texture or to a certain end result you get. You've got to be open, guys, to it. I know there's people going, oh, man, I will never do that. Hey, there were times when I said, what are they doing when I went to classes? And I said, why are they doing that? Like slicing the hair. It's ruining the hair. But when he told me why he was doing it, it's because it's Asian hair. It needs to be roughed up so that they get the pliability and the response they want. So as long as you understand the why, what's wrong with the what? Go ahead, Andrew.
Valencia has a question asking, is this good for giving volume to fine hair?
Yes. As a matter of fact, here's what I love about you. Look at this. I'm cutting this edge more on a blunt, kind of like when I close, see if I can position myself where you can see it. There it is. And I'll go, wait a minute, I want to go over here. Look, when I go tap, 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 that's a slight bluntness to that. That's great for fine hair because it adds weight. But sometimes fine hair, even if it's cut to the same length, it gets no volume. That's the number one problem with fine hair. But what I don't want to do is layer fine hair so short, it's just going to flatten it more. In order for hair to have volume, you need length. So this works for fine hair. It's awesome from 1 all the way up to probably like a 7 and 8. Remember, we're talking 1 to 10, 10 being coils, 1 being bone straight. Okay, so it's awesome on just about every type of hair. I mean, look at the volume I'm getting out of that. Look how natural it's looking, and look how it looks like I graduated that, Andrew. But it's just the way that it's being cut. Hey, Marisa, what's happening, my dear? I thought you were in, where were you? I thought you were in Puerto Vallarta. Mason's birthday. What's up? All right, here we go. Now I'm to the right of center. Okay. Don't tell me you're watching this on vacation, Marissa. Okay, here we go. Down center. There's that right side. Now I'm going to stabilize this. Okay. Now on the right side. What I want you to notice, I'm using 2 fingers. Don't take a big section and pinch it all together and do this. Now what you're doing is you're throwing weight to the opposite side because you pinched it together. Notice how narrow these sections are. Look at this. See that? Look at. See? Now all I do is just slightly pinch. Look how flat that is. Okay. Can you see that, AC? Look how flat that is. So the idea is, once again, because it's flat, you want to be aware of the fact that you're not over directing that. See that flat? See how flat that is? What I'm getting you to understand is don't do this where I bring it together and now look how wide skinny that is. Okay, so I want to keep this somewhat flat. I pinch it together slightly, and that way it sits even with the line that you're cutting instead of getting arced by pinching it together. I hope that makes sense, guys. All right, let's get back into this. I'm work to a swivel. Now watch my swivel. Now look, where's my line? My line is the top of the graduation. My line is not the length down here. So see this line that you created? You come in. Now watch. Horizontal, I turn. I'm going to elevate this. I turn. This is what's cool too, AC. I've been elevating these things and it's awesome. So I'm horizontal. Watch me turn. I'll go slow motion to a diagonal. Now I tap, tap, tap. The steeper I go in, the softer it is. So if I've got really thick hair, then I'm almost going to go pretty steep. So you determine the angle of what you're going in and doing. You determine that by how steep that is. Look at that. And then see, all this just beautifully sits on top of that one length bob. Okay. I'm going to continue working my way around. Look at that. All the way around. What I love, Andrew, is this is allowing me to really experience freehand cutting. I don't think you need to really all the time need to put it into your hands all the time or your fingers, especially when you want something that's really soft. I think that's so important. So let's take a look here. Let me see just a moment, guys. All right, hold on. Boom. Just a moment. Okay, hold on. All right. I'm coming. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. We haven't lost power. We haven't lost anything. Let's see. Okay. What are you doing, Sam? I'm trying to get my YouTube up. All right, here it comes. Here we go. All right. All right. I'm in the picture now. Okay, here we go, guys. Getting back to it now. All right. All right, here we go. All right, now back to the opposite side. Okay, I got both YouTube and Facebook going, so I can kind of help out on both. All right. Oh, you get to be, yeah, Marissa, that's right. Yeah, freehand cutting, there's discipline to it. You've got to understand there is discipline to it, but it really does bring out, I think it really establishes your eyes, the artistic side of your eyes in terms of being able to see things a little bit more, in terms of being able to measure things when you do things so technically. Okay, here we are. Look at, I've got my sections ready. Here's my first one. Bring that down. Okay, I get a nice flat pinch. And I like pinching with my index and middle finger, just like I'm holding at a finger angle. Okay, there's my line. I can see my line. So that's the horizontal there. I turn to a vertical, a diagonal, and I tap, tap. I turn to horizontal. I go back vertical, tap, tap. Back to horizontal, tap, tap. Remember, I'm not slide cutting. I want everybody to be aware of that. I am not slide cutting. Okay. And you get just that soft, beautiful edge on that bob. Okay. Questions, concerns? Once again, flat. I think this works great. I want to go back to, I think it was Colleen, I believe, that said, but what about curly hair and all that? This is awesome on that curly hair. Okay. I love doing curly hair like this now in terms of this technique. Where did this come from, Sam? This came from a man by the name of Ludovic Beckers. Okay, Ludovic Beckers shared this with me a while back, and I just feel that we're getting into this texture and this geometrics, but it's the texture on top that's soft, and that's where I chose to apply this technique is in these bobs. So kudos to Ludovic Beckers. If you're not following him, he's the international artistic director for Lanza. For Lanza. Mark Dolan, Leah Freeman. Lanza's a great brand. All right, here we go. Now I'm going to take that section again. Remember, it's about 2 fingers. Okay. I comb that down. All right. Now I look for that bob. There's my bob. Now watch. I'm loving it with the swivel AC. It's much more comfortable, especially when I have to put my body in an uncomfortable position. See how I tap, back down. Now you can elevate this. Okay, I'm elevating this. Sam, how high do you go up? Don't be, this is where, like maybe I'll stop here once. I come back to horizontal. Okay, watch how I'll come back in, and maybe I'll stop way up here. Come back down. As long as I'm at that same starting point, I'm fine. How much texture you cut up into that, that's going to be your choice. Now take a look at this. This is so cool. And I haven't cut that fringe area yet. I've got one little area to do, that one. But I'm loving this AC in terms of this whole kind of feeling of, I think, a natural progression from these French and Italian bobs. Okay. Hey, John, we hope to see you soon, my friend. Make sure you come check us out. Remember, guys, In-Salon Programs, the art team is available for you. Teresa Romero, the creative director for Sam Villa, is available for you to come in. The whole team is available for you to come in. So I think let's get back into salon education. Let us come in and inspire your team. Sam, I'm a small salon. I can't afford that. Well, then do a ticket event. Have it at your salon for your team, but then sell tickets so other salons can come in to offset your costs. There's ways where we can communicate you and help you to make it happen. We can do that. We can make it happen for you. Okay, here we go. I've got my last one, horizontal. I turn. Look at my shear slightly on a diagonal. I turn. Here, I turn. Here, and I turn. And I turn. Okay. Now, that's my shape. Okay. And once again, I just love all the texture that I see happening here. Okay. Now I'm going to go in and I want to cut this fringe. This fringe, I want to cut a fringe today a little bit more shorter than what I've ever cut them before. Okay. So I think fringes, you're going to see them get sharp and they're going to be short, but they're going to have a little bit more of a PC edge to them and not so much a feathered edge. You'll still see a curtain fringe. You're going to see those happening for a while. But I want to talk about the next natural progression of fringes, and that is that fringes are going to get a little bit shorter. They're going to get softer. I want you to think more like maybe maybe like a 90s fringe where they had some extreme, but they were PC and not chunky. Okay. All right. So how are we going to do that? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a horizontal slice, and this section is probably about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch. Okay. Watch what I'm going to do. Okay. And I'm going to take this section and I'm going to go profile for you so you can see this. Okay. And I'm going to bring this down just a little bit so I can get to it. Okay, good. Right there. Okay, now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this section, get that out of the way for you. And I'm going to bring this section back to me. And I'm going to cut it short. Want to lift your head up, look up at the ceiling. Atta girl. Okay, here. I'm going to bring this back on my hand and I'm going to cut. So what I'm doing with my fringes is, and you've seen me do this lately, I've been really elevating my fringes away from the hairline first, automatically, so that I immediately get this degree of shortness. Now look at that degree of shortness that I've got. Okay. And obviously I haven't blown dry this. Okay. But you can just start to see the degree of shortness that you get from doing that. And what I love about this, lift your head up, is this makes it very kind of like, it gives me that length of shortness that I want. The next section, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this section here. I'm going to give you a view of it. Okay. And I'm going to divide that triangle that you see there in half. Okay. So watch me divide this triangle in half. Okay. And I'm going to elevate this one back. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I've elevated. So there's no guide. Okay. So if you're concerned about, well, where's this going to land? Watch this. Because I elevated this back, this one sits short to long on top of this one. So now look at the fringe, and I haven't blown dry this, guys. Okay. I'll get it back in natural falling position. Okay. Now, you can just start to see what I'm getting here. Look at this. Okay. And I'm not, look how it's got that little softness to it almost to me. This gives a fringe too, watch. Just gives it a sense of volume to it in terms of cutting this way. Here's though, if I decide to do a bob by clipper, what kind of problems could I have? A more classic bob, I mean about the neck and back. Okay, if you go, if you go clipper right here, that's fine. There's no issues. You won't run into any problems. It sounds like you're probably experienced with a clipper if you go clipper in this back. Now, if you go clipper here, I haven't tried it cutting this method with a clipper. I haven't tried that. But clipper down here, in terms of the way that I elevated that and cut that, you could certainly do that. I hope that helps you out. Okay. Crystal, it's like breakfast at Tiffany. Yes, absolutely right. It is. All right, let's go to this next section. This is my last one that I have here. This is that last triangle. Okay. And look at this, guys. I mean, you can see how easily you can work with your hands to establish this in regards to, watch how I elevate that back. Now watch this. I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut. I'm going to just etch that. This will be the one sitting, the last section sitting on top. And I like cutting my fringes a little bit more. I've gotten a little bit more technical with them, but at the same time, let's bring you up a little bit. At the same time, Andrew, I've gotten technical with them, but I want to get really that soft, organic kind of feel to it when I do that. And now see how I've got all that texture and how I just really got that bob. Now, could you blow dry this straight and see it straight? Sure, you could. You could see it. You could blow dry this straight, no problem. But I think the idea behind it is, what I want to start to see is just see this a little bit more of an organic type of appearance to these things in terms of how we're seeing them and what we're seeing. But just really, once again, I'm going to recap this for you. I'll draw it out for you. Okay. But I think it's just really fun just going in and starting to figure out different ways in terms of how are we going to start to cut these bobs and what are we going to do with them. Billy Bob, great to see you, brother. Great seeing you on Sunday also. I hope you were here for the class, buddy. Got something out of this. Any questions, any concerns? Let's think about those questions, those concerns, and what you might have. Let's go here, what I did in this nape area. Okay. What I did to recap this, I brought this up. This is my degree of elevation. I brought that up. Everything came up to that. A classical technique that I've been working with. So here's what it looks like from a back view. It looks like this. You bring everything up. Okay. This comes up to that. This came up to that, and we cut a blunt line. We take a guide from the opposite side. We elevate back up, and we cut a horizontal line. Once we did that, we came back in and we cut all of this off to the desired length that we wanted to. Okay. Now, once we did that, then we went to the side area. And on the side area, what I did with this bob was I said, I want this bob to hit right at chin jaw length. So we brought everything right down. And this is that first section that we did, and we cut right to that. And then we cut round to that. Okay. Now, once we did that, the idea once again here was that sits pretty much really heavy on top of what we did. Then what we did is all of this was cut to here. Okay. That's the way we did that. Okay. Once we did this, this was soft. See that blue? Now here comes the green. Here's that green. Okay. Now that sat with that ear, with that lip, and it sits square coming all the way around. Okay. So this from here, when you look at this back area right here, that sits one length on top of an undercut. Now comes our top area. Follow me over here. Okay. On the top area, we simply took this from a middle part we established a triangle section. We brought this down and we divided it into 2 sections. So there's one, and we cut this up and down. Here's a second. We cut that up and down. And we did this on this top area here. We did this working with about finger width, about 2 sections, 2 fingers doing that. Okay. And then the action of the shear is horizontal first. That's the action of your shear. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your shear, you're going to go steep diagonal. Remember, the flatter the diagonal, the more weight you're going to give it. So you could possibly do that with fine hair, but you got to be aware of that. So now that shear went from horizontal, it went to a very steep diagonal, opening and closing as I did that. Then I brought it back down to the horizontal. Then I went back up on a very steep diagonal, opening and closing as I go up, and then back down to the horizontal, back up on a diagonal, very steep, and then once again continuing to close it. This would be your shear action in terms of what you did. Questions, AC?
Doing great, brother.
All right.
Just lots and lots of gratitude.
Oh, good. Well, I mean, as long as the gratitude's great, I appreciate, but as long as they're walking away, they're getting it. And guys, it works. Don't hesitate to try this. Sam, what do you do when they come back in? The first thing I ask them is, tell me what you didn't like. Don't insinuate they like it, but you need to get a temperature check. What did you like about it? What did you dislike about it? And then you adjust accordingly. But I guarantee you, if they really want to enhance their volume, if they want to enhance their texture, this is a great way to go about it. Last thing I did, AC, here was center, and just give them a top view of that. And remember, where did this come down to? This came down to that weight line, and you're going up and down to that weight line, and you're going up and down. This is all of that graduation that you had underneath. That was step 1 that we did underneath. All right, I'll take a step aside, and just to put some recap on this as I'm taking a step aside. I mean, guys, in trends, we're seeing a lot of bobs, pixies, shags, mullets. You're seeing a lot of hybrid cutting right now. Take a picture while I'm talking. You're seeing these ideas of shaglets, mixies, bixies, whatever you want to call it. Boxy is something you're going to start to see. Scolette is another one you're going to start to see. Butterfly fringe is another thing that you're going to start to see. But I think it's important that we really understand, what's happening, why it's happening, embrace it, whether we like it or not. It's about the person that's sitting in your chair. And John, I just want to comment on what you just said. Thanks for a fresh approach. Always trying to think fresh. Always trying to think, what do we know already that we could possibly do in a different way? Check out our in-salon education. We're ready. The art team is ready to come to you. Don't forget about all of our lives. Roger Molina killed it yesterday. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Sammy. As always, great show. It's always such a pleasure to have you on.
All right, brother. Take care, AC. See you soon, buddy.